to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. It's great to have you joining us today. And man, it's exciting because this has really been an amazing week. Our podcast here had our greatest single day of downloads that we've had since we started the podcast. It's just been incredible, the response to this new message of the year about the 15 daily habits that you can practice for a successful year. And I'm really, really, really thrilled because we've been doing these podcasts for a while, and to not really have the sort of advertising and promotion that most podcasts have in order to get the numbers. We haven't gone that way for a lot of different reasons. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, at all. I've done those very things with books and church and stuff like that, so I'm by no means opposed to it, but just hasn't been something we've done. But thanks to our partnership, especially with the Pray app and pray.com and the Sunday service where I spoke, that response then that came along there just kind of propelled the podcast. So if you're listening on the Pray app, hey, thanks. You're part of a whole new group of people that are joining in on this podcast, as well as those of you that listen on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and all those different ways that many people do in many different ways. But it is certainly exciting for sure to have a larger audience, and especially as we talk about this first of the year and what can we do to make this a dream year. And last week we had the beginning of that 4-part series we're going to do on dream year with Live the Dream, and now today we're going to talk about Focus Your Life, because you can't have a dream year without focus. That never happened, never has happened, never will happen. It will require focus for sure to be able to see it become a reality. By the way, you can listen to the Sunday service. It's still up there. If you want to listen to the Sunday service message that I did, that would be available. Just look up Sunday service and Rick McDaniel, and you can listen to that message. The response has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm so excited and pleased by how the message is doing exactly what I hoped it would do, which is just inspire people, encourage them to really step out in faith and practice faith and belief, and it makes such an enormous difference. So if you need encouragement, and it's different because that's me speaking, preaching, as opposed to me doing a podcast, and there's a different energy there, and a live environment, lots of people, and speaking. So if you like this podcast, I think you'll really like that and like listening to it. So I encourage you to do that, as well as the Daily Devotion Show, which is also on the Pray app, that you can listen to what has got to be now close to like 190 different recorded devotions that you could listen. So imagine how many days you could go listen to one of those devotions. If you went Monday through Friday, it'd be close to a year. And frankly, we'll have enough content that will be a full year that you could listen in 2023. So that's another great option for you, as well as the other largest app in the world. I'm on the largest prayer app, Pray, and the largest Bible app, the YouVersion app. And I got 5 different plans that you can do on the YouVersion Bible app. These reading plans are all 5-day plans. Your breakthrough year is the latest one that is out there. This is Living, Best Life, Believe, there, and Turn Setbacks to Comebacks. All those are available. All 5 of those plans are available for you to read. So lots of good stuff out there for you to take advantage of. But let's just jump in here today as we continue what we started last week about a dream year. What would it take to have a dream year? And what I want to share with you today is something that I myself went through about 17 or 18 years ago that changed my life. And I believe it can change your life. what happened was I had started a church and had just worked incredibly hard for over a decade and grew the church and built a big building. And when that happened, after that happened, the church council came to me and said, hey, we think you should, you have a well-deserved break, a little sabbatical that you could take and kind of take a little rest. Now in the academic world, a sabbatical is like a whole year. It's like a whole academic year. And then in different settings, it gets shortened. And, back this many years ago, it wasn't as popular as it is now. But there was this thing called a summer study break that had existed in some churches through the years. I can remember reading books in which the author would basically say, I wrote this book on my summer study break, that sort of thing. So I was hoping for a summer off, but that wasn't possible. So it really came down to about 4 or 5 weeks, I suppose, is what the break was. And that just, could involve anything that I wanted to involve. I went on a trip with my dad, a place that he had always wanted to go, which is Banff, which is in the Rockies of Canada. Incredible place, just these glacial lakes that are blue. If you've ever seen the pictures and you think, I wonder if they did something with the filters. No, they really are blue. The reflection of the sun off of the ice that's in the glacial lakes just creates this incredible picture. So that was something I wanted to do with my dad because I'd wanted to take a trip to Italy with my mother, and unfortunately, my mother passed away before that was able to happen. She's Italian, and her father moved from Italy and emigrated to America. I always wanted to do that. So that's a lesson learned, by the way. A regret that I have that I didn't do that with my mom, and I made sure I did it with my dad. And then there was some other travel and some study involved. And then I went and did this focus exercise process that I want to share with you today. That, again, is just really changed the trajectory of my life, because out of that came the launching of the High Impact Living broadcast, which has had several different iterations. It was at one time on One Place and Light Source, and that was video and then audio messages from me speaking. And it has turned into what you hear on Pray and this podcast, lots of different ways. But that's where it all started. It also had me resuming my writing career. I'd actually written 2 books earlier in my career, and then I stopped when I was starting the church and raising my kids. And then I resumed my writing career. And again, that's where I am today, a speaker and writer. The very things that came out of this, although this was, again, 17, 18 years ago, and really just in the last few years has it come to its full fruition, but it's certainly working in that direction for a number of years, because there were many, books and things written and broadcast and all those sorts of things. But now this is my full-time gig and what I do all the time. So it had such an impact on my life, and I just want to share with you how I did that and the sort of the background behind it and the very practical things that I did that I hope that you will consider doing. And let's just really start in terms of focus with this idea. You really have to just understand, who you are. If you assume that everyone's like you, then you never will look for your uniqueness. So let's just begin with this basic understanding. You're unique. You're one of a kind. Who you are is different than anyone else. That's it. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people like you or people have similar strengths to you, all that sort of stuff. Sure, that's true. But there's only one you. And God doesn't make junk. He makes masterpieces. He's very happy with the way he made you, and his desire is to work in your life to finish what he started. The Bible says in Philippians that God's begun a good work in you, and he'll complete it. He's working on the completion of it. So that's how you have to see yourself, as just someone that God's working on. I'm a work in progress. We all are works in progress. And then a few chapters later in Philippians, where Paul then says, this one thing I do, and that's the focus phrase. This one thing. That's the thing I want you to get today. This one thing. Can't do everything, but you can do one thing. Listen, what's easy for you, it's not easy for everyone. And what's hard for you is not hard for everyone. That's the thing that makes us unique, just really understanding ourselves. Like, how am I wired up, and gifts and strengths and personality and passions and all those things. You just got to understand yourself. There's nothing that will replace that. I like the 80-20, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle. It applies to so many things. It's used a lot in nonprofit settings to talk about, 80% of the people or 20% of the people give 80% of the money, 20% of the people do 80% of the volunteering, those sorts of things. Lot of truth in that from somebody who's been in that field for many years. It's used in economic. Pareto was an economist, so it's used in that way as well. I want to use it this way in terms of strengths and weaknesses. So this is the first of many things I'm going to ask you to do. So I hope you got a piece of paper and a pen. If you're you like to listen to the podcast while you're driving or something, that's great. But this is one that you're going to need. You can listen to while you're driving, but you're going to need to go back and get your pen out and paper, because I've got a number of things. You'll need a full sheet of paper before we're done today. But here's the first one: 8 strengths and 2 weaknesses. 8 strengths, 2 weaknesses. Not 8 weaknesses, 2 strengths, which unfortunately so many of us think that way. We think negative instead of positive. So we're always focused. We think about what we don't have instead of what we have. That's not the way to go in life. I talked about that last week in terms of live your dream. It can't be, life can't be, so much we don't even have a dream because we know what we don't want more than what we do want. We need to focus on what we do want. That's important. Regrets come not from the things we did, but the things we failed to do. So let's get on the right side of this. 8 strengths and 2 weaknesses. All right, here's another. 8 positive and 2 negative adjectives to describe you. 8 things you could say about yourself, and 2 that are positive and 2 that are negative, because no one's perfect, but it shouldn't be 50-50. It should be 80-20. So what can you say about yourself that is positive versus a couple things that you would say are negative? You need to center yourself on your uniqueness, on your strengths. You focus your life, now listen, by focusing on your strengths. You focus your life by focusing on your strengths, not focusing on your weaknesses. I think the best thing that you can do is not try to work on improving your weaknesses, but on strengthening your strengths. That doesn't mean you don't do anything about your weaknesses. I do. I am by nature not a patient person. I'm an impatient person. I have grown greatly in that area, especially in long-term patience. I'm amazed. I'm in something right now. I've just been waiting so patiently for like a month. In the old days, I could have never done that. And I've been able to do a lot longer than just a month. Still not so great when I'm sitting in traffic or standing in a long line, but gotten better. And there's nothing wrong with trying to work on a weakness, but that's not gonna be the thing that's gonna fulfill my life's calling, destiny. That's not the thing that's going to allow me to see my dreams come true, is just getting a little more patient. It's an important character quality, but it's the strengths that are going to bring about the reality of the dream. So you need some time to reflect, to, just really reflect on your life, not just live your life. This is what so many people do. They spend so much time just living that they never do any reflecting, and then they never see their dreams come true. If you think about it, have you ever really gotten like a great idea like in the middle of a busy work day? Not really, no, that's not how it happens. Most of mine have come in the early hours of the day when it's quiet and I'm praying and talking to God, and God just drops these ideas in my head. Yeah, you might get one just driving without any music or anything on, or maybe in the shower or something, but it's in the quiet moments. And, you can do the reflecting, of course, in a number of different ways. You can take some time at the beginning of the year and do like a little retreat. You could take like a morning each month, just one morning each month, and really reflect. You could take an hour each week. I mean, there's ways to do it. I mean, we're talking about no phones, no email, no work, no family. I went away with my staff for years at the beginning of the year for a planning retreat, but I always went before the rest of the staff came. The first day I spent by myself, then they joined in. So you can do it that way. Maybe a morning a month might be the best way to do it, frankly, because the morning is enough time to get in, to pass just like an hour a week and an hour a week. It's maybe easier to just plan out in the month to be able to do that. You look at your schedule, and again, you don't prioritize your schedule. You schedule your priorities. You put your priorities into the schedule. You just look at possibilities. You look at burdens, that challenges, problems. You look at all these things. But most of all, of course, is you're really just reflecting on what we're about to jump into here, which is this is who I am. This is me, my greatest strength, where I need to be focused. And so what am I doing to make that happen? Because when you're doing that, that's how dreams become reality. It's not magic. It's not pixie dust. It's not you wake up one day and ooh la la, it happened. That's not how it works. It works with focus. It works with a continual focus. And this, say, monthly time of reflection could be weekly, certainly yearly, to just get you pointed in the right direction. These things are what make dreams become reality. So back to your pen and paper, okay? Just questions to help you to have a clear focus. What do you need to grow in? What is it where do you need to grow in order for your dream to become a reality? Here's another. What do you need to do to be ready for the opportunity? Because before God brings the opportunity, he needs to know we're ready. Because we have to see it and then we have to seize it. And in order to seize it, you have to have prepared for it. The old classic definition of success: when preparation meets opportunity. You prepare, the opportunity comes, and voila, you have yourself a dream fulfilled, a dream year, success the way that you envisioned it would be for your life. So what I want to share with you is some stuff that I got when I went through this a number of years ago. As I mentioned, I was using materials from the Master Planning Group, which is an organization that Bob Beal, and I mentioned his name briefly last week. It's an organization that he leads, and I used his materials on focus to try and focus my own life. And again, it was life-changing because at that point in my life, I had achieved a lot of things that I'd wanted to achieve and was pretty happy with where I was at. But I knew that it wasn't enough. It wasn't going to fulfill me if I didn't really look at my life and say, okay, what is it? How can I maximize my life, I used to talk a lot about maximizing your potential, fulfilling your God-given potential. And in order to do that, you have to have laser focus. It's the only way it'll happen. I'm telling you, it is the only way. So as I work through these materials, what Beale really wanted was for a person to nail down their single greatest strength. Remember, I started with 8 strengths and 2 weaknesses, right? But get it down to just one. And then all your time and energy goes into maximizing that one strength. And, that's not easy to do. I recognize that. Believe me, I had my challenges and struggles with it. It took me a few days to kind of work through that, to get to that place, and even some resistance, just one thing. Why can't it be 2 or 3 things? So let me just tell you what I ended up, that process, again, 17, 18 years ago, here's what I came down to. The greatest strength, my greatest strength, communication. Spoken and written. So there's a little bit of wiggle room. So it's one thing, but it has more than one expression, as both a spoken and a written expression. And so what happened there is, that's when I said, got to resume my writing career. I've written 2 books, but I got a lot more. And since then, I've written 6 more books. That's what happened out of that. Went from 2 to 8. And frankly, I'm almost finished with book number 9. Then as far as the spoken, was having a vehicle like a broadcast where my messages could be heard by a far greater number of people than just in one local place in Richmond, Virginia. That happened. Those numbers went up and up. And now this Sunday service that I just did with Pray, the numbers are, I haven't gotten them yet, but I'm sure they're just going to be massive. They would be larger than you could ever do, say, in any one local place. The numbers are that big. The writing, I started writing for Fox News, and had one article, 1.7 million people, just to give an example. So these numbers that's how I was able then to start maximizing my one single greatest strength of communication. So that's the thing you have to do, is boil down your strengths into one thing. This one thing, again, Philippians 3. This one thing I do. Philippians 3:13. This one thing I do. Just what is the one thing? What is that one singular focus? The good work, Philippians 1, that God's doing a good work in your life. You're in process. Okay, now what's the one thing? There is such incredible power. Lasers, right? Why are lasers so powerful? Because they're incredibly focused. There is great power in focus. So this is, again, on your paper, you're writing it down. What is my single greatest strength? Now, at the beginning of this year would be a good time to just stay with this. What one word best captures your focus for this year? What's that one word that would capture, your focus for what it is that, you want to do in this year? And it's really a good thing to do, is to have the one word. Now, again, the same thing. I was introduced to this concept years ago. I understand that John Gordon, for instance, now talks about this idea of the one word, but in my experience goes back even before he got to talking about it, even though he's great. I recommend him. I mean, I'm not throwing shade on him by any means. He's got it together. His materials are great. His stuff is great. And the one word thing is good. But I was just fortunate to be introduced to it, 17, 18 years ago. But it's really a good thing to do. And you say, well, what kind of word? What would be some examples? Well, you could have a word like forward or greater or breakthrough or comeback. What word, or growth, or there's all kinds of, or impact. There's all kinds of words. My word for this year is breakthrough, because I want to break through in a couple of areas in that I really haven't broken through before. One big one, but really two. So, of course, within those two are a lot of sub breakthroughs, so to speak. So, but what one word would really capture, the dream that you have for this year? So that's another question to ask yourself. Here's another. What three things do you most want to accomplish? There's a whole science, by the way, to this three, things in threes. It's fascinating. I couldn't even begin to get into it, but it's really fascinating. I can't tell you the number of messages I've done through the years that have 3 points, but it is the vast majority of all that I've done. There's something about it. What three things do you most want to accomplish in 2023? Here's another one. What three roadblocks, again, with the breakthrough theme, need your immediate attention? In other words, how are you going to get past the things to get to accomplish what you want to accomplish? And say, well, you're the positive guy, Rick, the inspiration guy. You're the encourager. Yes, but I'm not. I'm not blind. I'm not foolish. I'm not silly. I understand there's roadblocks. I understand that when you want to get to where you want to get to, you got to go through things. And, you can go around them, and you can go over them, or you can go through them. There's different ways to do it. It doesn't all have to be the same way. So that's there, but there are roadblocks. All right, here's another. What 3 steps can you take starting right now? What's the first 3 steps you need to take in this new year? We're still in January now, so we're not at January 1st, but we're still in the first month of the year. Barely, I realize barely, but we're still there. So what are the first 3 steps to take this year, 2023? Here's another one. This is a classic Bob Beal, and this is him in a nutshell. This is how he just phrases things. What 3 things can you do this year that will make a 50% difference in your life? That is a very probing question. What 3 things could you do that would make a 50% difference? Because there's lots of things you could do, and they can make a difference. But if you're going to identify 3 things that are going to make a 50% difference, half of everything substantial and different in your life this year is going to happen because of 3 things. That's going to cause you to do some serious thinking and reflection. So those are some questions, but let's just kind of circle back for a moment and just go back to this idea that you're unique, and it's really about discovering your uniqueness. And it's good to start with 8 positives and 2 negatives. It's good to look at adjectives to describe yourself. But you've got to take some time to really reflect and really get down to what's the one thing. Like, what's the one thing? What is the one single greatest strength that I have? The thing that I am absolutely best at, and the thing that will, as I said last week, and if you haven't listened to last week's Live Your Dream episode, these go together like hand in hand. You got to listen to that, where I talk about, congruent, it's got to be congruent. So your dream is always congruent with your strengths. If you say my dream is to be a professional basketball player, and you're 5'9", then it's probably not going to happen. I mean, there's always that occasional exception, but it's very rare. And so it's congruent with your strength. So you got your strength, you got your dream, and you put it all together, and you are on your way, focused. And this focus will just really drive you. Again, I did this 17 or 18 years ago, and I am where I am today. And I've got some really exciting year ahead of me where more dreams are going to come true. But it all starts here with this focus. So work on that. Take time. You'll be glad you did. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.